Keller Dover, Hugh Jackman, a devout man struggling with his carpentry business, spends Thanksgiving dinner with his family at their neighbor's home, the Birches. After the meal, their young daughters, Anna Dover and Joy Birch, disappear. A police search leads to an RV that had been parked nearby, found outside a gas station near a wooded area. When Detective Loki, Jake Gyllenhaal, questions Alex Jones, Paul Dano, the RV's driver, Jones attempts to flee but crashes into a tree and is subsequently arrested. Loki starts interrogating sex offenders in the vicinity, which leads him to a grim discovery: a corpse bound to a chair in the basement of a local priest. The priest admits to killing the man after he confessed to murdering several children, describing him as someone waging a war against God. Loki observes a maze pendant around the neck of the deceased. During Detective Loki's interrogation, it's revealed that Jones has a developmental disability, with an IQ comparable to that of a 10-year-old. Despite extensive and aggressive questioning by Loki, Jones reveals nothing that links him to the missing girls. Additionally, a forensic examination of his RV yields no evidence tying him to the crime. As a result, Jones is released due to insufficient evidence. When Dover confronts Jones outside the police station, Jones ominously says, "They didn't cry until I left them," although no one else hears this. Dover begins to spy on Jones and witnesses him singing one of his daughter's favorite songs, leading him to believe Jones knows the whereabouts of the girls. Dover then abducts and imprisons Jones in an abandoned apartment building inherited from his late father. With Franklin, Joy's father, Terrence Howard, reluctantly assisting, Dover tortures Jones for several days without gaining any additional information. Overcome with guilt, Franklin confides in his wife, Nancy, Viola Davis, about the torture and brings her to see Jones. Although Franklin wants to release Jones, Nancy insists on allowing Dover to continue the torture, neither aiding nor obstructing the process. During a candlelight vigil for the missing girls organized by the neighbors, Loki spots a hooded man behaving suspiciously. When Loki approaches him for questioning, the man flees. Although the suspect escapes, Loki manages to create a composite sketch, which is released to the public. Later, Anna's mother, Grace, Maria Bello, hears strange noises coming from Anna's bedroom and discovers that her own bedroom window has been opened. She reports the break-in to the police, prompting an investigation by Loki. Noticing that Grace appears to be under the influence of prescription medication, Loki initially dismisses the incident. However, he conducts a search of the house with Grace, who takes him to Dover's basement. There, Loki finds the basement stocked with survival supplies and a half-empty bag of lye. Grace reveals that Dover has claimed he's been out helping the police search for Anna each night, which both she and Loki know is not true. When Jones is reported missing, Loki grows suspicious of Dover and starts to follow him. His investigation leads him to discover that Dover inherited an apartment complex from his father, a corrections officer who had committed suicide years earlier. Loki confronts Dover at the apartment complex, but Dover manages to hide Jones's presence just before Loki is called away urgently. Based on tips from a children's clothing store clerk and a car license plate report, Loki identifies the hooded suspect as Bob Taylor, David Dasmalchian. He confronts and arrests Taylor at his home, where he finds walls covered with intricate maze drawings. In a back room, Loki uncovers locked crates containing maze books, snakes, and bloody children's clothing. The Birches and Dover confirm that the bloody clothing found in Taylor's home belongs to the missing girls. At the station, Taylor confesses to the abductions, but provides no information about the girls' whereabouts or their bodies. While being questioned by Loki, Taylor grabs a gun from one of the officers that ran into the room and commits suicide. Despite Taylor's confession and the evidence of the clothing found in his house, Dover remains convinced that Jones knows where the girls are and continues to torture him. Eventually, Jones begins to speak, hinting at escaping from a maze. Dover visits Jones's aunt, Holly Jones, Melissa Leo, to observe her reaction when he mentions mazes. Holly reveals that Jones is cautious with his words, a behavior stemming from an accident involving snakes in his youth. It is discovered that the blood on the children's clothing is actually pig's blood. In Taylor's yard, only child-sized mannequins are found buried, with no actual bodies. Forensic profiling reveals that Taylor had been abducted as a child and had been reenacting abductions based on a true crime book about a serial child abductor known as the Invisible Man. whose crimes involve a book of unsolvable mazes. Loki concludes that the clothing identified by Dover had been stolen after the abduction during the break-in reported by Grace, and determines that Taylor had faked his involvement in the abductions. Days later, Joy Birch is found drugged and hospitalized, but Anna remains missing. When Dover visits Joy in the hospital to seek information, Joy, still disoriented from the drugs, says to him, "You were there." Dover, believing this revelation indicates where Anna might be, rushes off. Loki attempts to stop him, but loses track of him. Loki then heads to Dover's apartment building, where he discovers Jones being held captive. Dover realizes that Joy must have overheard him at Jones's house and returns to Holly's place, ready to torture her. However, Holly surprises him at gunpoint and reveals that Jones had given the girls a ride in his RV, but had no intention of harming them. She admits that she alone is responsible for the abductions. Holly and her husband, whose body was found in the priest's basement, had abducted many children, including Bob Taylor, to make their parents lose faith. She claims to be waging a war on God for allowing their son to die of cancer. Holly reveals that Jones was their first abduction victim, taken at age 7, 26 years ago. She shoots Dover in the leg and imprisons him in a pit hidden under an old car, where he discovers a whistle that belonged to his daughter. As Dover realizes he is losing blood and facing death, he prays for God to watch over Anna. Loki goes to Holly's house to inform her that Jones has been found. His suspicion is piqued when he hears noises inside but gets no response at the door, so he enters the house. Inside, Loki discovers a photograph of Holly's husband wearing the maze pendant found on the body in the priest's basement. Realizing the peril, he draws his weapon and searches the house. He finds Anna being injected with poison by Holly. Loki orders Holly to show her hands at gunpoint, but Holly turns and fires her revolver, grazing Loki's forehead. Loki responds by shooting and killing Holly. He then rushes Anna to the hospital, where she begins to recover, and his own wound is treated. At the hospital, Grace thanks Loki and inquires whether Dover, who is still missing, will go to jail if he is ever found. Loki responds, "Probably." At the Jones residence, a police team concludes their search of the yard for the night, informing Loki that the frozen ground will delay the excavation for weeks. As Loki is about to leave, he hears a faint whistle. Initially dismissing it, he then hears it more clearly. As he turns to investigate, the screen fades to black. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more film caps.